Hey guys, this is Ben Smisher. Today I'm going to be discussing elements of narrative in the film Raiders of the Lost Ark, directed by Steven Spielberg with a screenplay written by Lawrence Kasdan. First, we want to discuss what exactly a narrative is. Narration is simply the act of telling a story, and a lot of times when we're watching films, we get that story through the camera. It shows us where we are, it shows us what characters to follow, it shows us what's happening to them. It's the primary storyteller of most all movies. We also get storytelling from the writing, conversation, and sound we see and hear in movies. It's a visual and audio based storytelling experience. We also want to discuss something called non-diegetic elements. Non-diegetic elements are elements that do not exist in the world of the film, yet exist in real life to move the plot along. These are things such as language transitions, voiceover narrators, montages, things that we can see as an audience, but that the characters in the film cannot see, that help us to gain a better understanding of what is going on in the story, while also not being overly intrusive or overly distracting from the story itself. In Indiana Jones, an example we can see of this that's pretty common is the map dots when we're traveling from place to place. This helps us to get a sense of where we are in the movie, where we're headed, and where the characters are traveling in real space without getting too distracted or without having to be told directly, this is where we're traveling, this is where we're going. Another example in Indiana Jones actually comes with the film score, and it's a very famous example of film score. Of course, you remember the theme song from Indiana Jones, but we also have a lot of character and object accompaniments. And what that means is that when a certain character or a certain object appears on the screen, take Indiana Jones with his theme song, Marion with her riff, or the Ark of the Covenant with that sort of swingy, moody tone we get whenever we see the Ark or whenever the Ark performs a miracle. That's a non-diegetic element of the film that Steven Spielberg and John Williams employ in order to enhance the viewing experience and convey more messaging in terms of narrative. When we're talking about narratives, we also do want to discuss the narrative structure of a film. Most films follow a simple structure in terms of narrative. You start with a setup where you introduce your characters and the world around them. Our inciting incident comes next, and it's when the character is first introduced to the main plot or the main conflict that's taking place in the film. Following that, we begin our rising action as the character takes steps to solve this problem or to resolve the conflict. These steps of rising action lead us to a climax, which is the height of the action in a film, the most exciting, the most intense, the most dangerous point of the film. And following the climax, we fall back down into our falling action and our resolution as the character begins to solve the problem in its entirety and go back to their normal life structure. And we can see this basic setup in Indiana Jones as follows. Our setup is when Indiana Jones is searching for the golden idol. He's getting chased by a giant boulder, chased by Indians, chased by Renee Belloc around the world. It's our introduction to who Indiana Jones is as a character. He's an archaeologist, he's a school teacher, he's venturous, he's daring, he's suave. This lets us know everything we need to know about him before we get into the specific film plot. Our inciting incident is when Indiana Jones is introduced to the Ark of the Covenant by the U.S. military. He's assigned to go and find the Ark by them before the Nazis find it. This gives our hero his mission that he can now set out to accomplish. We can see examples of rising action as Indiana Jones heads over and teams up with Marion, travels to Egypt to find the Ark of the Covenant, encounters swordsmen, Nazis, villains of all sorts, and has to wade through different obstacles and troubles in order to get the Ark, which he ends up not getting as it's captured by the Nazis, leading to our climactic moment. Our climactic moment in this film is when the Nazis open the Ark and the miracle occurs, which is when, of course, Indiana Jones and Marion close their eyes and are preserved from being completely melted by the power of Christ within the ark. Following that scene, we get our falling action as Indiana Jones and Marion return to the United States as a couple once more, and the ark is safely stored away in a discreet military warehouse. So you can see sort of the rise and fall narrative structure employed here in this film, and this is actually a narrative structure that's employed in a lot of different films. One thing I do want to compare this film structure to actually is a theory of film structure proposed by, I believe, Joseph Campbell. It's called the hero's journey. Now, the hero's journey is a more complex version of a narrative structure. There's a bit more nuance involved in it. And so I wanted to take a look at the hero's journey of Anakin Skywalker across the Star Wars saga. Now, we're cheating a little bit here because it's a saga instead of a single film. But we can see kind of a pretty concrete, pretty obvious example of the hero's journey as we follow Anakin Skywalker. He receives his call to action as he is informed that he's a Jedi and sets out to save the world. He receives supernatural aid. Obviously, we've got our threshold guardians. He's transformed. He goes through challenges along the way, death and rebirth, atonement from sin, and return to the world he once knew as a changed and transformed man. So we can attempt to apply this more complex form of narrative structure to a lot of different films, likely Indiana Jones included. But again, there's no real confirmation. It's not often talked about whether or not filmmakers actually attempt to employ this hero's journey narrative structure in their films. It's more just an interesting test that you can apply to a lot of different films and sort of recognize patterns and similarities in the way people tell stories across time. These are the sources I used. Thank you so much for watching today.